The silence in this house was a physical weight. It had been 6 months since my husband Frederick died, and the quiet pressed down on me, heavier than any blanket. At 68, I was a guest in my own son's home, a ghost haunting the hallways of his perfect, sterile life. "Diana, are you up?" I didn't need to turn to know it was Sabrina, my daughter-in-law. Her voice was like crisp, new money, thin and sharp. She stood in the doorway of the immaculate kitchen, already dressed in yoga pants that cost more than my weekly groceries. "I'm up," I said, pulling my robe tighter. "Just getting some water." "Nonsense. You sit. I'll make you your coffee," she insisted, gliding to the high-end espresso machine. She did this every morning. It was a ritual I'd started to dread. She'd bustle around, her blonde ponytail swinging, and present me with a specific mug, a delicate blue one with tiny painted flowers. Mitchell and Sabrina drank from massive, stark white mugs. Mine was always the blue one. "Here you are," she said, placing it in front of me with a smile that never ever reached her cold blue eyes. "One special coffee for my special mother-in-law." I wrapped my hands around it. It was warm, at least. In this house, in this new life in Durham, I felt like a burden. A piece of old, unwanted furniture Mitchell didn't have the heart to throw away. Sabrina, on the other hand, was clearly counting the days. "Drink up," she chirped, already wiping down a counter that was, to my eyes, spotless. "It'll put some pep in your step. You've been so down lately." I nodded, not trusting my voice, and took a small sip. It tasted normal, but then everything in this house looked normal on the surface. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. 20 minutes later, Sabrina announced she was off to an emergency interior design consultation. I waited until the sound of her luxury SUV faded before grabbing my coat. I needed air. More than that, I needed a piece of my old life. I walked the 3 blocks to the corner store. Frederick and I had read the morning paper together for 43 years. The ritual was the only thing that made me feel sane. The autumn air was sharp, and for a moment, I wasn't Diana Wallace, the grieving widow. I was just Diana. As I approached the store, I saw him, a boy sitting on the cracked concrete steps of the boarded-up laundromat next door. He was small for his age, maybe 10, and swimming in a jacket that was 3 sizes too big. His hair was matted, and he clutched a dirty backpack to his chest as if it held the crown jewels. Our eyes met. His were dark and startlingly alert. He stood up in a single jerky motion, an urgency that made my heart stutter. "Ma'am," he called out. His voice was small but cut through the morning traffic. "Ma'am, please wait." I stopped. I wasn't the kind of woman who talked to strangers, but something in his tone, a desperate sincerity, held me in place. He ran toward me, not like a child, but like a soldier, his eyes darting left and right. He stopped a foot away and thrust a crumpled piece of paper into my palm. His small, cold fingers grazed mine. I looked down at the paper. It was a receipt from the corner store, weeks old. On the back, in shaky, childish pencil, were words that made no sense. "Your daughter-in-law put something in your coffee. Don't drink it." My head snapped up. "What is this? Who are you?" The boy, Toby, looked terrified, but he held his ground. "Don't drink it," he whispered, his voice frantic. "The lady, the one with the yellow hair, she lives in your house." "Sabrina? I seen her," he rushed on, twisting the strap of his backpack. "From the alley. I watch from the alley. She comes out before you do when the car is warming up. She puts drops. From a little bottle. She puts drops in the blue cup." He pointed a grimy finger at the blue flowered mug I was still carrying, which I'd intended to rinse and return. "She don't know I see," he said. "Don't drink it." "Why are you telling me this?" I whispered, my throat tight. His face hardened, losing its childlike quality. "Just don't." Before I could ask another question, before I could even get his name, He was gone. He didn't just walk away, he vanished, sprinting down the side street and disappearing into the warren of alleys behind the shops. I was left standing on the sidewalk, the crumpled note in my hand and a cold, heavy dread settling in my stomach. My blood felt like ice water in my veins. I stared at the note until the words blurred. I looked at the blue mug in my other hand, the dregs of the coffee still clinging to the bottom. My mind raced, tumbling backward over the last few months, the exhaustion. It wasn't just grief. This was a bone-deep weariness, a leaden fog that chained me to the guest room bed until noon. I'd never in my life slept past 7. The dizziness, sudden swooping spells that left me gripping the furniture. Sabrina had been so concerned. "Oh, Diana, you're just having a hard time adjusting. It's your age, the shock." "Maybe you should see Dr. Montgomery," she'd suggested to Mitchell, just loud enough for me to hear. "Get something to help her sleep, something for the anxiety." But I had been sleeping like the dead. Waking up groggy, disoriented, my memories of the previous evening hazy and distant. Frederick used to joke I was the lightest sleeper in North Carolina, yet lately a freight train could have passed through the bedroom and I wouldn't have stirred. I'd blamed it all on grief, on age, on being displaced from my home of 40 years. It never occurred to me to blame Sabrina. I bought my newspaper. I don't remember the transaction. I must have paid, must have spoken to the cashier, but my mind was a million miles away, stuck on the image of a small, unlabeled bottle and drops falling into my blue mug. The walk home was a nightmare. Every crack in the sidewalk seemed to be a new accusation. Was I going insane? Was this some elaborate, cruel joke? Or was my son's wife systematically poisoning me? I let myself into the silent house. The blue mug was still in my hand. I walked to the kitchen, my heart pounding a heavy, sick rhythm against my ribs. I stood at the sink for a full minute. Then, with a sudden, decisive movement, I turned on the faucet and poured the last of the coffee down the drain. I watched the beige liquid swirl and disappear, feeling as though I was washing away the last 6 months of my own naivety. I scrubbed the mug, rinsed it until it squeaked, and set it back on the counter. My hand was shaking. How long had this been going on? Sabrina returned an hour later, all smiles and carrying designer shopping bags. The consultation had clearly been a success. "How was your walk, Diana?" she asked, dropping her keys into a ceramic bowl. "Fine," I managed, my voice surprisingly steady. "Refreshing." "Good." She bustled into the kitchen, and her eyes went straight to the counter. I saw her pause. The blue mug was clean. "Oh," she said, her voice a little too casual. "You didn't finish your coffee this morning. Are you feeling all right?" The question was a test. I knew it. She was checking her work. I folded my newspaper, my fingers gripping the edge. Just wasn't in the mood for it today. I think I'm going to try cutting back on caffeine. I watched her face. It was just a flicker, a tightening around her mouth, a narrowing of her eyes. So fast I would have missed it if I hadn't been looking. Annoyance. Frustration. Then the brilliant, false smile snapped back into place. "Well, that's probably for the best. Too much caffeine isn't good for someone your age. You need your rest." Someone my age. As if 68 was 1 foot in the grave. As if I was too old to recognize a predator when I was living in her den. That night, I lay in the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, but for the first time in months, my mind was not. It was sharp, alert. The fog that had shrouded my thoughts for so long was lifting, and the clarity was terrifying. Without my morning pep, I was wide awake. Every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind, every distant siren, I heard it all. I felt exposed, vulnerable. I thought back to the boy, Toby, his small, serious face. I seen her from the alley. He had risked something to warn me, A homeless child had shown me the kindness and protection my own family had denied me. The anger came then, cold and slow. It started in my stomach and spread outward, a creeping, strengthening ice. I wasn't just a sad old woman, I was a target. I must have dozed because I woke to the low murmur of voices from the hallway. Mitchell and Sabrina. Their bedroom door was ajar. They were arguing. "Can't stay here forever, Mitchell. It's just not working." Sabrina's voice was a low, insistent hiss. I know. Mitchell sounded exhausted. "But what are we supposed to do, Sabrina? She's my mother." "Your mother isn't the woman you remember," Sabrina said, her tone softening into that fake, concerned voice she used. "She's grieving. She's confused. She needs more than we can give her." A beat of silence. "There are facilities, Mitch. Nice ones. Beautiful ones. She'd have social interaction, nurses on call. She'd probably be happier with people her own age." People her own age. That quarantine phrase again. "I don't know, Sab. A facility. It sounds cold." "It's not cold. It's practical," she snapped, her patience gone. "We'll talk about it later. Just think about it." Their door clicked shut. I lay in the dark, my breath frozen in my chest. Facilities. The pieces slammed together with the force of a physical blow. The exhaustion, the dizziness, the concern, the suggestions about Dr. Montgomery. They were planning to put me in a nursing home. And Sabrina, oh God, Sabrina was drugging me to make me appear confused. She was building a case against me, manufacturing symptoms to justify an outcome she'd already decided on. The betrayal was so profound it stole my breath. This wasn't just an inconvenience. This was a conspiracy. And Mitchell, my son, my baby boy, the one I'd taught to ride a bike and held through fevers. He was letting her do it. He was weak, pliable, and he was letting his wife poison his own mother to make their lives easier. My internal clock, free of its chemical restraints, woke me at 6. I dressed quietly in slacks and a blouse, not my usual robe. I needed to feel like myself. When I walked into the kitchen, Sabrina was already there, in her silk robe, back to the counter. She turned when she heard me, and I saw it again, that flash of pure, undiluted disappointment. I was up. I was dressed. I was not the befuddled creature she was trying to create. "Diana, you're up early," she said, her voice tight. She forced the smile. "Must be feeling better." "Much better, actually," I said, walking to the counter. "Clearer than I have in weeks." She reached for the blue mug, a practiced, automatic gesture. "Wonderful. Coffee." "Please." I watched her face as she poured from the pot, then turned her back for a moment to the spice rack. I heard the tiny, distinct click of a bottle cap. My stomach twisted. She was doing it right in front of me, assuming I was too old or too stupid to notice. She turned back and handed me the mug. "Here you go." "Thank you, Sabrina." I raised the mug to my lips, my hand steady. I let the hot liquid touch my mouth, but didn't swallow, all while holding her gaze. I saw her shoulders relax. The test was passed. "That's wonderful," she said, turning away to pour her own cup. "Mitchell will be so pleased to hear you're improving." Improving. As if my natural state was a medical condition. I waited until she was distracted by her phone, then walked to the guest bathroom. The coffee went down the sink. I rinsed the mug, rinsed my mouth, and went back to the kitchen table. Sabrina was gone, but I heard her voice from the master bedroom upstairs. The door was open again. She was talking to Mitchell, who must have been getting ready for work. "She's up already, dressed and everything," Sabrina said. "That's good, right?" Mitchell's voice was muffled. "It's not good, Mitch. It's erratic. Yesterday she was cutting out caffeine. Today she's drinking it. She seems more alert, but it's manic. I don't know." A pause. "Maybe we should increase the dosage. Just a little. To help her settle." Increase the dosage. The words hit me like a slap. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a plan, a strategy, discussed like they were adjusting a recipe. My own family was systematically drugging me, and they were talking about it over their morning coffee. I sat down heavily at the kitchen table, the unread newspaper in front of me, and tried to figure out what to do next. I was a prisoner in this house, and my jailers were my own family. The next few days were a blur of careful deception. I became an actress. I was the confused, grieving, slightly out-of-it mother-in-law. Every morning, Sabrina would hand me the blue mug with her bright, false smile. "Here you go, Diana." "Thank you, dear. You're so good to me." I would pretend to sip. I'd carry the mug with me, my hand wrapped around it. Then I'd find my moment. "Oh, I forgot my glasses. Be right back." I'd go to the guest room, dump the coffee in the toilet, and flush. "Just need to use the powder room." Dump, rinse. "I think I'll water the plants on the patio." The geraniums got a lot of coffee that week. With each passing day, the fog lifted more. My energy surged. I started walking again, longer distances each time. My mind, which had felt like it was moving through wet cement, was now sharp, clear, and focused. And it was focused on one thing: Sabrina. I wasn't just a victim. I was a spy. I started paying attention. I listened. I watched. Sabrina's belief in my decline made her careless. She'd talk on the phone right in front of me, assuming I was too doped up or lost in grief to understand. On Wednesday, I was pretending to nap on the living room sofa, my eyes closed, my breathing slow and even. Sabrina was in the kitchen, on the phone with, I assumed, her sister. "It's just getting worse," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "She's more confused every day. I think Mitchell is finally coming around to the idea that we need professional help." Professional help. A euphemism for a cage. "The place in Linden Hills has an opening next month," Sabrina continued, her voice dropping. "It's expensive, of course, but, it's not like she's going to live forever." I held my breath. Her savings will cover it for a few years, and after that, well, that's what the state is for. We just have to be smart about the application. My savings. The money Frederick and I had meticulously saved for 43 years. The money for our retirement, for emergencies, for a cruise we'd never get to take. They weren't just getting rid of me. They were planning to drain me dry first. They were spending my money in their minds, calculating my life expectancy against my bank balance. My blood didn't just boil, it turned to acid. I forced myself to stay still, to keep up the facade of sleep, while inside I was planning a war. That evening, Mitchell came home looking worn out. He sat beside me on the couch. Sarah was upstairs taking a bath. For a moment, he just looked at me, and I saw a flash of the little boy I'd raised, uncertain, sad, and desperate for approval. "Mom," he said quietly, I just want you to know that whatever happens, I love you." The words should have been a comfort. Instead, they felt like a eulogy. He was already mourning the mother he was actively betraying. "I love you too, sweetheart," I said, patting his hand. I forced a warmth into my voice I didn't feel. "You'll always be my baby boy." He smiled, but it was a weak, watery thing. "Sarah thinks we think maybe it's time we talk to Dr. Montgomery about your options." "Options?" I asked, playing the part. I tilted my head, looking confused. "What kind of options?" "Oh, he waved his hand vaguely. "Just different living situations. Places where you could have more support, more social interaction, with people your own age." There it was again, the segregation. "That sounds expensive," I said, watching his face. "Don't you worry about that, Mom," he said, patting my hand back. "We'll figure it out." With my money, I thought. You'll figure it out with my money. He couldn't even look me in the eye. He was a coward, poisoned by his wife's ambition just as surely as I was being poisoned by her drugs. Friday morning was a gift. "My sister is having a complete meltdown," Sabrina announced at breakfast, stabbing at her grapefruit. "Her ex is trying to get full custody. I have to drive to Raleigh and deal with her lawyer. It's going to be an all-day thing." She looked at me. "You'll be okay by yourself, right, Diana? I can have a neighbor check in." "Oh, don't be silly, dear," I said, giving her my best vague smile. "I'll just read and watch my stories. I'll be perfectly fine." An hour later, Mitchell left for a 2-day business trip to Portland. He kissed my cheek, his lips brushing my skin like a guilty moth. "Be good, Mom. I'll see you Sunday night." At 9:05 a.m., Sabrina's SUV pulled out of the driveway. At 9:06 a.m., I was out of my chair. For the first time in 6 months, I was alone in the house. The clock was ticking. Whatever Sabrina was using to drug me was in this house, and I was going to find it. I started in the kitchen. I was methodical. I was a woman on a mission. I pulled out every drawer, checked behind every bag of flour, every box of pasta. Nothing. I moved to the cabinets. Canned goods, plates, glasses. Then I got to the high shelf above the stove. The one Sabrina used for her specialty items, exotic spices, expensive vanilla extracts, things she used to impress her dinner guests. I grabbed the step stool. Behind a tall bottle of vanilla bean paste from Madagascar, I found it. A small 2-ounce amber vial with a black dropper cap, no label. My hands shook as I took it down. The liquid inside was clear and looked slightly thicker than water. I unscrewed the cap and sniffed. Nothing. No scent at all. It was designed to be undetectable. I took out my phone and photographed the vial. I photographed its hiding spot. I photographed the spices around it. Evidence. My eyes scanned the shelf again. Tucked just behind where the vial had been, there was something else. A standard white paper pharmacy bag. My fingers fumbled with the staple. Inside was a prescription bottle. The label was from Dr. Montgomery's office. The prescription was for a custom herbal sleep tincture, but the name on the bottle wasn't mine. It was Mitchell. My blood ran cold. Mitchell. He was the one getting the drugs? My mind spun out, creating a new, terrifying narrative. Was Sabrina drugging him too, making him compliant? Or was he getting them for her, using his own name? Was he not just weak, but an active, willing participant? This was worse. So much worse. I panicked. My careful, methodical plan evaporated. I lost time and resources in a fog of new fear. I grabbed the phone book, a relic I'd insisted on keeping, and found the number for Dr. Montgomery's office. "Dr. Montgomery's office, this is Brenda." "Yes, hello," I said, my voice trembling. I'm calling about a prescription for a Mitchell Wallace, a sleep tincture." "One moment, ma'am." The hold music was grating. I paced the kitchen, the fake prescription bottle clutched in my hand. "Ma'am?" Brenda came back. "I'm sorry, we have no record of a patient named Mitchell Wallace." "You don't?" "No, ma'am, and Dr. Montgomery doesn't prescribe custom herbal tinctures. We're a family practice." "Oh, I see. Thank you." I hung up. I sat at the kitchen table, my head spinning. I felt like a fool. I felt paranoid, confused, delusional, exactly the way Sabrina wanted me to feel. Had I imagined it? Was I, after all, losing my mind? I stared at the prescription bottle in my hand. I felt defeated. Maybe Sabrina was right. Maybe I did need help. Then my anger returned, sharp and clarifying. I looked closer. The label. It was slightly crooked. The ink, when I rubbed it with a damp finger, smudged. It was a fake, a cheap inkjet printed fake. She planted it. She had anticipated this. She had created a false lead, a decoy designed to send me spinning in circles, to make me doubt my own sanity. If I'd confronted Mitchell with it, I would have looked like a lunatic. This wasn't just careless malice. This was cunning. This was a long-term strategic plan. My fury was a physical thing. It burned away all my fear and all my doubt. She hadn't just drugged me. She had underestimated me. And that was going to be her final mistake. My resolve was steel. I put the fake bottle back, put the real vial back, exactly as I'd found them, and continued my search. I went to their master bathroom. It was a spa, all marble and glass. Behind rows of expensive, untouched serums and creams in Sabrina's medicine cabinet, I found them. Internet printouts, stapled together. Liquid melatonin for elderly patients, dosages and effects. Managing sundowning in dementia patients. The dosages discussed were astronomical, far beyond anything for a simple sleep aid. These were doses meant to induce confusion, docility, and heavy sedation. I photographed every single page. My phone was becoming my weapon. I went to Mitchell's home office. The room smelled of leather and his expensive cologne. The desk was a heavy mahogany piece I'd given them as a housewarming gift. I knew it had a locked side drawer, and I knew where Frederick had told me to hide the spare key. I felt along the underside of the desk, and my fingers found the small, flat key taped securely out of sight. A little trick from my husband, reaching out to help me from beyond the grave. The lock clicked open. The drawer was full. My stomach dropped. Brochures. Not one, but 3. Glossy, expensive pamphlets for assisted living residences nearby. Linden Hills, Oakwood Gardens, the Willows. They weren't homes. They were prisons for the old, complete with photos of smiling, vacant-eyed seniors playing checkers. Underneath them, a manila folder. I opened it. Printouts of my bank statements. My private financial records, my savings, my checking, my tiny pension. Someone had been accessing my online accounts. My eyes scanned the pages. There, in the margins, was Sabrina's neat looping handwriting, calculations, numbers, 8,000 month, 2.4 years, Medicaid app process, 6 Mosiers. She had been doing the math, calculating exactly how long I had, financially, before I became worthless to them. The final item was at the bottom, a sheet of Mitchell's embossed letterhead, a half-written letter addressed to Dr. Montgomery. Dear Dr. Montgomery, I am writing to you today with a heavy heart about my mother, Diana Wallace. It went on to detail my increasing confusion, my dangerous lapses in memory, incidents that had never happened. Found her wandering in the garden at 3 a.m. A lie. Left the stove on twice last week. A lie. Accused Sabrina of stealing her jewelry. A complete fabrication. It was a systematic written campaign to have me declared incompetent. All of it designed to build a medical case, a paper trail to justify putting me away. I photographed every single word. I photographed the brochures, the bank statements, the vile handwritten calculations. My hands were steady now. This wasn't grief. It wasn't confusion. It was cold, hard fury. I put everything back. The letter, the folder, the brochures. I locked the drawer and replaced the key. I went to the bathroom and put the printouts back. I had just settled into my chair in the living room, the newspaper spread open on my lap when I heard the garage door rumble. My heart leaped into my throat. She was back, hours early. The front door opened and Sabrina walked in, looking annoyed. God, my sister is impossible. I couldn't take another minute of it. She looked at me, still in the chair, newspaper in hand. How was your day, Diana? Quiet? I looked up. My expression as placid and empty as I could make it. Oh, yes, dear, very quiet. I think I dozed off. Good, she said, disappearing upstairs. That's good. But inside, I was vibrating with rage and adrenaline. I had the truth, and for the first time since Frederick died, I knew exactly what I had to do. Saturday morning. I woke before the dawn, my mind clear, my resolve absolute. Today, the charade ended. I didn't put on my robe, I dressed. I wore my best navy blue suit, the one Frederick had always loved, the one that made me feel like a CEO. I put on lipstick. I did my hair. If I was going to war, I was going in full armor. When I walked into the kitchen, Sabrina was already there, nursing her own mug back turned. She turned when I entered, and her mouth literally fell open. She took in the suit, the hair, the makeup. I was not the shuffling, bathrobe-clad ghost she expected. I was Diana Wallace. "My goodness, Diana," she said, her voice laced with suspicion. "You look nice." "Special occasion?" "You could say that," I replied. She moved to the counter, her movement stiff. She reached for the blue mug. "Coffee? Please." She went through the motions. The pour, the turn to the spice rack, the click. She handed me the poisoned mug. I accepted it, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. I didn't pretend to drink, I just held it. "Sabrina," I said, my voice quiet but carrying in the silent kitchen. "We need to talk." Something in my tone made her freeze, coffee pot still in her hand. "Oh? About what?" I pulled out my phone. I opened the gallery. I showed her the first picture, the unlabeled amber vial glowing on the screen. "About this." The color drained from Sabrina's face. It was instantaneous. It was as if a plug had been pulled. The coffee pot slipped from her grasp and shattered on the expensive tile floor, sending scalding coffee and white ceramic shards skittering everywhere. I don't know what you think you're looking at," she stammered, but the artificial sweetness was gone. Her voice was thin and reedy. "I think I'm looking at the reason I've been sleeping until noon," I said calmly. "I think I'm looking at evidence that you've been drugging me for weeks. Liquid melatonin, isn't it? In doses high enough to keep me sedated and confused." Sabrina's mask didn't just slip, it disintegrated. The calculating, cold-eyed woman I'd only glimpsed was now in full view. "You're being paranoid, Diana," she hissed, taking a step back. "That's vanilla extract. You're confused." "Am I?" I swiped to the next photo, the printouts about elderly sedation. Swipe. The Linden Hills brochure. Swipe. The bank statement with her handwriting. Swipe. The fabricated letter to Dr. Montgomery. Her eyes widened with each image, the reality of her exposure dawning. Where did you get those?" she whispered, her voice trembling with rage, not fear. "From your husband's office. From your bathroom. From all the places you thought I was too drugged and stupid to look." I stood up, still holding my untouched, poisoned coffee. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Or were you planning to increase the dosage until I was too far gone to be a problem?" The silence stretched, broken only by the drip, drip, drip of coffee from the counter. Finally, Sabrina laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "You want the truth, Diana? Fine." She crossed her arms, defiant. "Yes, I've been giving you something. To help you sleep. You were miserable, moping around, dragging this whole house down with you. And the facilities? Yes. Michael and I do think you need more care than we can provide. We've been looking into options. For your future." "My future," I repeated. "Or my money?" Her eyes flashed. "Your money. Your precious money won't last forever. Someone has to be the adult here. Someone has to think practically about these things, not be blinded by sentiment and denial. Someone like you." "Yes," she spat. "Someone like me." I walked to the kitchen sink, which was now full of broken ceramic. I found a clear spot and slowly, deliberately poured the contents of the blue mug down the drain. The symbolism was not lost on either of us. "Here's what's going to happen, Sabrina," I said, turning back to face her. I felt calm. I felt powerful. "You are going to stop poisoning me, effective immediately. You are going to stop planning my life. And when Mitchell gets home tomorrow night, you are going to sit him down and explain exactly what you've been doing." Sabrina's bitter laugh echoed in the kitchen. "Or what, Diana? You'll tell him?" She took a step toward me, her face a mask of contempt. "Who do you think he's going to believe? His loving, supportive wife? Or his confused, paranoid mother who's clearly becoming delusional and going through my private things?" She thought she had me. She thought it was my word against hers. I just smiled, and something in my expression, something cold and unfamiliar, made her take an involuntary step back. "Oh, Sabrina," I said softly, "you have no idea what you've awakened." Sunday evening, I watched from the guest room window as Mitchell's rental car pulled into the driveway. He was home from Portland. The last 24 hours had been a silent war. Sabrina had scrubbed the kitchen floor with a vengeance, but she hadn't spoken a word to me. She was walking on eggshells, trying to guess my next move. She was about to find out. "Mom!" Mitchell called out as he entered, dropping his bag. His voice was tired but held that false cheer of someone anticipating a normal evening. "How was your weekend?" "Enlightening," I said. I walked to the top of the stairs. He looked up and his smile faltered. I was in my suit again. I was not the grieving mother he'd left. "Mitchell," I said, my voice commanding, "we need to have a family meeting in the living room, now." Sabrina appeared from the kitchen, her face pale but set in lines of grim determination. She'd spent the day planning her strategy. She moved to Mitchell's side, placing a proprietary hand on his arm. "Michael, honey," she said, her voice oozing concern, "thank God you're home. Your mother, she had some kind of episode yesterday, a bad one. She's been acting paranoid, making wild accusations. I think we need to call Dr. Montgomery, tonight." It was a brilliant move. Attack first. Establish me as the unreliable narrator. But she'd forgotten one thing. I wasn't drugged anymore. "What kind of accusations?" Mitchell asked, his gaze flicking between us, his face creased with worry. "The kind that come with evidence," I said, walking down the stairs. I pulled out my phone. "Sit down, son, both of you." They sat on the sofa. I remained standing. I held the floor. "I'll start at the beginning," I said. I showed him the first photo, the amber vial. "Sabrina has been putting this in my coffee every morning for weeks. It's a high-dose liquid sedative." "What?" Mitchell looked at the phone, then at his wife. "Sabrina? Mom, that's impossible. That's crazy." "Is it?" she said, her voice shaking with fake outrage. "Michael, that's my vanilla extract. Your mother is having delusions." "Then you won't mind if I show him the rest," I said, "like the printouts from your bathroom about sedating elderly patients, or the brochures for the Linden Hills facility you researched, or the—" I was about to swipe to the photo of my bank statement, the one with her handwriting, the irrefutable proof. Sabrina moved like a snake. "Oh, Diana, you look flushed," she cried out, lunging forward from the sofa. "You need some water." She grabbed a full glass of water from the coffee table and tripped. The entire contents of the glass arced through the air and slammed directly onto the phone in my hand. "Oh no!" she shrieked. "Your phone! I'm so clumsy!" I stared at the device. The screen flickered. It went green, and then it went black. I jabbed the power button. Nothing. I jabbed it again. It was dead. Completely, utterly dead. The evidence, the photos, the months of proof, all of it. Gone. The silence in the room was absolute. Mitchell just stared at the dead phone, then at his wife, then at me. Sabrina's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with fake horror. But I saw her, from the corner of my eye, smile. A tiny, triumphant smirk. "See, Mitchell," she whispered, her voice trembling. She's not well. She's obsessed." She thought she had won. She thought that without the advantage, I was just a crazy old woman. She'd destroyed the proof. But I wasn't holding nothing. I had my mind, and I had my anger. I pivoted. I let out a short, sharp laugh. Sabrina and Mitchell both stared at me. "You're right, Sabrina," I said, pocketing the useless, dripping phone. "The photos are gone. You're very, very clumsy." I turned my full attention to her. "So we'll just have to do this from memory. It's a good thing my memory is so sharp these days." I acted more aggressively. I took a step toward her. "You're right, Mitchell. It's insane to think your wife would do this. So let's clear it up. Sabrina, dear, just tell him." "Tell him what?" she spat. "Tell him how much the Linden Hills facility costs per month. You remember, don't you? You wrote the calculation right there on my bank statement, the one you got from Mitchell's desk." Mitchell's head whipped toward her. "My desk? What bank statement?" Sabrina paled. She was caught. I don't know what she's talking about." "Oh, come now," I pressed. "It was a very specific number. What was it? 7,000 a month? 8? You were worried my savings would only last, what did it say? 2 years? 2.5? Goaded, cornered, Sabrina snapped. "It's $8,000 a month," she yelled, her voice cracking, "and your precious savings would only last 28 months. Someone had to do the math." She had confessed. She had admitted to seeing my private financial records. Mitchell stood up slowly. "Sabrina, how do you know that? How do you know what's in my mother's bank accounts?" She faltered. She saw the trap. "Tell him," I said quietly. "Tell him how you used his login information to access my accounts without my permission. Tell him about the elder care attorney. Tell him about the letter you faked." "Michael, she was a danger to herself," Sabrina cried, turning to him, her eyes desperate. "She's not capable. I was trying to protect her. I was trying to protect us." "By drugging her?" he whispered, his face ashen. "Yes," Sabrina screamed. The word echoed in the room. "Yes, yes, I gave her something. A little melatonin to help her rest. Is that so wrong? She was driving us insane." The full, ugly confession hung in the air, irrevocable. Mitchell looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. He just stared at his wife as if she were a stranger. You drugged my mother. I helped your mother. You lied to me," he roared. "You lied to me every single day. You told me she was confused. You made her confused." Sabrina's composure shattered completely. All the fake concern, all the pretense burned away, leaving something vile and raw. "You want the truth, Michael?" She spat, her face twisted in a sneer. "Fine, yes, I drugged her, and I'd do it again. Do you have any idea what it's been like having her here?" She gestured wildly at me. "The constant depression, the crying, the way she just sits there, mourning all over everything, making us feel guilty just for existing." She turned on Mitchell. "You work 70 hours a week to support this life, and you come home to that, to her. She was sucking the life out of this marriage, out of me. I had to do something." "So your solution," I interjected, my voice ice, "was to drug me into a stupor and warehouse me so you could steal my life savings." "Your solution," Michael whispered, his voice shaking with a rage I had never heard from him, "was to commit a felony, to commit elder abuse against my mother." Mitchell had gone very still. It was the stillness that always came before the rare, terrifying explosions of his childhood. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, which was far more frightening than his yelling. "Get out!" Sabrina stopped, mid-rant. "What?" "Get out of this house, now." "Michael, don't be ridiculous. You're overreacting. We can work through this." "You drugged my mother," he said, the words coming out as a low growl. "You violated her bank accounts. You forged documents. You tried to have her declared incompetent. Get your things and get out of my house." I watched Sabrina's face, shock, anger, denial, and then finally, cold, hard calculation. This wasn't going her way. "Fine," she hissed. "If I leave, I'm taking half. Half of everything. The house, the savings, the retirement. I've been married to you for 15 years, Michael. I'm entitled." Mitchell laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. "Half of what, Sabrina? Half the mortgage payments you were planning to fund with my mother's stolen money? You'll get nothing. I'll see you in court, and I'll see you in a criminal court." For the first time since this began, Sabrina looked truly, deeply afraid. She didn't pack. She just grabbed her purse and her car keys and stormed out, slamming the front door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. Mitchell and I stood in the wreckage of his living room, the silence deafening. He sank onto the sofa and put his head in his hands. He just sat there for a long time. Finally, he looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I should have seen it. I should have—" "How could you have known?" I said, sitting in the armchair opposite him. "She was very, very good at this." "But the signs were there," he whispered, torturing himself. "How tired you were. How confused you seemed. I just thought it was grief." "Michael," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He looked up, his expression broken. "Anything." "How much of this did you agree with? Not the drugging. I know you didn't know that. But the rest of it. The facility. Taking control of my money. How much of that was you?" He flinched. He looked away, and I saw the deep, agonizing shame on his face. He was quiet for a long moment. "Some of it," he finally admitted, his voice cracking. "Not the details, not the money, but she had convinced me." "Convinced you of what?" "That you weren't capable anymore," he said, the words tumbling out. "Sabrina. She was a nurse, Mom, before she got into design. She kept pointing things out. You forgetting a name. You sleeping all day. She said you were a danger to yourself, that you were in cognitive decline. I trusted her medical opinion." "Her medical opinion," I repeated, "that your 68-year-old mother needed to be institutionalized after 6 months of widowhood." He winced. "When you put it like that, it sounds insane." "It is insane, Michael. I wasn't in decline. I was grieving. I needed my son." And he was listening to his wife tell him I was losing my mind. He didn't have an answer for that. He just sat there, the full weight of his weakness and his wife's betrayal crashing down on him. What happens now?" he asked, looking around the room as if seeing it for the first time. "Now," I said, standing up, "you decide what kind of man you want to be. The kind who lets his wife abuse his mother, or the kind who protects his family." "I want to protect you, Mom," he said, his voice thick. I don't know how to undo this. The trust is earned, Michael," I said, walking to the kitchen to get a dustpan for the broken glass. "And it can be earned back, if you're willing to do the work." He nodded, a broken man. But for the first time, he was seeing the truth, and that was a start. 3 weeks passed in a blur of lawyers and locksmiths. Mitchell took a leave of absence from work, and we existed in the quiet house, 2 wounded people learning how to talk to each other again. The divorce proceedings were, as expected, nuclear. Sabrina's lawyer tried to argue that I was an unreliable witness, citing my documented cognitive decline. That argument evaporated when my new phone and a new copy of my bank statements, pulled legally this time, was presented, along with the results of a blood test I'd taken. The lab had found residual traces of the sedative. The criminal charges were far more serious. Sabrina was facing a slew of them: elder abuse, fraud, identity theft. Her former nursing license, which she'd kept active, was immediately suspended pending a full investigation. The perfect, curated life she had been so desperate to protect was crumbling into dust. One rainy afternoon, Mitchell came into the kitchen where I was reading. He was on his phone, his face pale. "Mom," he said, "that was Detective Morales from the Durham PD. They want to talk to you." "About Sabrina?" "No," he said, his eyes wide. "About the homeless boy, the one who gave you the note." My heart clenched. "What about him? Is he all right?" "They found him," Mitchell said. "His name is Toby Calloway. He's 11 years old. And Mom, he's been missing from the foster care system for 3 months." We met Detective Morales at the station the next day. A child services caseworker was there, too. "Toby's fine," the caseworker, a kind woman named Mrs. Pine, told me. "He's safe. He's a very, very brave kid." "But why did he warn me?" I asked. "How did he know?" Detective Morales leaned forward. "This is the hard part, Mrs. Wallace. Toby has been living in that abandoned laundromat for weeks, watching the neighborhood. He saw Sabrina, as he put it, put the sleepy drops in your mug every morning. He recognized what she was doing," Mrs. Pine added, her voice soft, "because his last foster mother used to do the exact same thing to him." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "Liquid melatonin. In massive doses," Morales said, reading from his notes. "She was drugging him and 2 other foster children to keep them quiet and compliant while she collected the state payments. The same drug, the same method. That little boy, fleeing one monster, had run right into the territory of another, and he had recognized the signs." "Where is he now?" I asked, my voice thick. "He's in a temporary receiving home," Mrs. Pine said. "But he asked to see you. He kept asking the officers if the coffee lady was okay. He needs to know you're safe." "Of course, I'll see him. That child. He saved my life." "He saved more than just yours, Mrs. Wallace," Detective Morales said. His testimony, combined with what he saw Sabrina doing, has opened up a massive investigation into his former foster family. They were running a medication scam. Toby's courage is going to help put them away and save those other children. I sat back, overwhelmed. The ripple effects of one small boy's desperate, brave act. On the drive home, Mitchell was quiet. I watched the rain lash the windshield, my mind on Toby. "Our house has a lot of room, Mom," Mitchell said suddenly, his voice quiet. 3 empty bedrooms upstairs." I looked at him. "I was just thinking," he said, not looking at me. "I've made a lot of mistakes. I failed to protect my own family. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we could look into becoming foster parents, or even adopting." I stared at my son, and for the first time in years, I saw the man I had raised. The good man, the one who had been buried under Sabrina's ambition. "You'd be okay with that?" I asked. "An elderly mother and a foster child all at once?" Mitchell's smile was the first genuine one I'd seen from him in months. It reached his eyes. "I think," he said, "we could all use a fresh start. And besides, Toby already proved he's got excellent instincts about protecting this family." 6 months later, the house was no longer quiet. It was loud. It was messy. It was full of the chaotic, wonderful noise of a real family. Toby Calloway sat at the kitchen table, his reading glasses sliding down his nose as he wrestled with a math problem. "This is stupid," he muttered, erasing a hole in the paper. "Why do I need to know this?" "Because," I said, ruffling his hair as I passed with the coffee pot, "one day you might want to build a rocket, and I, for one, would like it to get off the ground." He grumbled, but he went back to work. He had been with us for 4 months, officially as our foster son. The adoption paperwork was making its way through the system. The scared, grimy boy from the alley was gone. In his place was a brilliant, funny, and occasionally exasperating 11-year-old who argued about homework and ate 3 bowls of cereal every morning. "Big day today," Mitchell announced, walking into the kitchen and straightening his tie. He'd changed too. He'd quit his high-pressure corporate job and was now working for a nonprofit that advocated for children in the foster system. He was using his skills for something that mattered. Toby looked up, his expression carefully, painfully neutral. He'd learned the hard way not to get his hopes up. "It's just the hearing." "It's just the hearing," I agreed, sitting across from him. "But I want you to listen to me, Toby. Whatever happens in that courtroom today, whatever that judge says, this is your home. You are staying with us. That is not negotiable. Understand? Even if it doesn't go through," he whispered. "Even if it doesn't go through," Mitchell confirmed, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Though I don't think we need to worry. Judge Harrington seems to be on our side." The hearing was brief. Judge Harrington, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense voice, reviewed the reports. She looked at the caseworker. She looked at Mitchell and me. Then she looked at Toby. "Toby Calloway," she said, her voice softening. "Do you understand what adoption means?" "Yes, ma'am," he said, his voice small. "It means it's permanent." "And is this what you want? Do you want Diana and Mitchell Wallace to be your legal family?" Toby looked at me. He looked at Mitchell. Then he looked back at the judge, and his voice was suddenly clear and strong. "They already are my family," he said. "This just makes it official." When the judge signed the papers and Toby Calloway became Toby Wallace, I cried for the first time since Frederick died, but these were not tears of grief. Outside the courthouse, Toby held my hand in one of his and Mitchell's in the other. He was quiet for a minute as we walked to the car. "Diana," he said, looking up at me with those same serious eyes that had warned me on the street. "Yes, sweetheart? If I hadn't given you that note about the coffee, what do you think would have happened?" I stopped and knelt, right there on the sidewalk so I could look him in the eye. I thought about it. I thought about Sabrina's plan, her careful, methodical cruelty. "I think," I said finally, "that you saved us all. You saved me from a place I never would have come home from. You saved Mitchell from a life he never would have been happy in, and in the end, you saved yourself." I brushed the hair off his forehead. "Sometimes, Toby, people are drowning. They're so busy trying to stay afloat, they can't see the way to shore. They need someone to throw them a rope. You were our rope." He nodded solemnly. Then, to my surprise, he grinned. "So, we all saved each other." "Yeah," I said, my voice thick. "We all saved each other." That evening, I was tucking Toby into his bed. His room, which had been a sterile, silent guest room, was now covered in posters of planets and shelves of books. He looked up at me as I turned off the lamp, his eyes sleepy. "Good night, Grandma Diana," he said. It was the first time he'd called me that. The word hit my heart with a gentle, joyful explosion. "Good night, sweetheart," I whispered. "Sweet dreams." I closed his door and stood in the hallway listening to the sounds of my home. Mitchell was on the phone, laughing. The television was on. The house was alive. Sabrina's plan had been to make me disappear, to erase me. Instead, her cruelty had been the catalyst for a new life, for a new beginning. She hadn't destroyed a family. She had, in the end, created one, a better one. A family built not on obligation, but on choice. Not on convenience, but on courage. I was Diana Wallace. I was 70 years old. I was a mother, a survivor. And for the first time in a very long time, I was exactly where I belonged. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.